lot of times people think when they need to start a company, they need to go out and do it in their garage. And sometimes it makes a lot more sense to do it when you have some infrastructure and support around you, and it can take away some of the risk. We just saw that there was magic there. People were getting better, and that PTSD was something that people could recover from. But I think we come from a culture where people don't want to fail. And I think you also have to recognize that there's going to be times when you fail, and that's totally fine. And sometimes an early failure that redirects you is totally fine. Be inquisitive, be humble, make sure you're taking care of your people and that you care about them and that you're making sure they're working on problems that are really important.
Some people wait for opportunity. Others fight for it. Welcome to Tactical Wealth, the show where discipline, service, and real-world experience become pathways to financial power. I'm your host, Kaj Larson. On each episode, we bring you the stories and the wisdom of those who have gone from boots on the ground to successful careers, from military to wealth, and how they've done it so you can apply those insights to your own mission and your own life. This is Tactical Wealth, from military to money. Welcome back to another episode of Tactical Wealth. We're here from our forward deployed location in the heart of Brooklyn, which would make my dad proud. He's a proud Brooklynite. And today's guest, I think my producer Angie would tell you I have been unduly excited about talking to. He is a Marine Corps veteran. He's an entrepreneur. He is a public servant. And he's also my friend. I'm proud to call him my friend, and I'm proud of the work that he's done for our country. Zach Iscol fought in the Battle of Fallujah. He went on to found a media company dedicated to the military community. He was also the founder of the Headstrong Project, which I don't think I've ever talked about this publicly. I was a beneficiary.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. You see, you're helping people all the time without even knowing.
I had no idea.
So, and then most recently, until quite recently, he was the director of emergency management for New York City, helping almost 10 million New Yorkers, sometimes on their worst day. Zach, so proud to have you here.
Thanks for having me, man. It's great to be with you. It's great to be with you.
It's good to see you. So yeah, we'll talk about Headstrong. I've never talked about it publicly, but I'm
blown away by that. But yeah, we can get into it.
We'll get into it. But before that, why don't we get into like how you're sitting in this seat now? You went to Phillips Exeter, right? You went to Exeter. So for people who don't know, this is like one of the most storied preparatory schools in America, in the world. Then you went to Cornell.
I went to Cornell.
This is a pretty blue blood background to end up in the barracks.
For a Jewish kid from New York, sure, very blue blood.
Yeah. Tell me about like the early days and how you decided to serve in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, so
By the way, you know my dad's a Marine, right? Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Very
proud.
He's from Brooklyn.
Paris Island Marine from Brooklyn. Yeah.
From Brooklyn and
from Red Hook.
Wow, that's real Brooklyn.
That's what he said.
And especially when he was growing up, Red Hook was like real Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like getting a little gentrified now, but it's like back then that was real. That was the docks.
Exactly.
Wow. So I grew up in a family where most of the men in my family had served. You know, World War II. My dad was in the Air Force for a stint, and service was always something that was really important for my family. Then when I went to Cornell, I played lightweight football, which is a varsity sport, just for those of us that are not, smaller in stature. But so I played lightweight football, and our football coach was a guy named Terry Cullen.
What's the cutoff for lightweight?
So when it used to be 150 pounds. When I played, it was 165. I was the smallest starter at 164, but it's 165 pounds 2 days before game time. It's now 185 because they peg it to the size of the average American male. So as Americans have gotten larger, the lightweight has changed. The standard has changed.
Got it.
It's now 185 pounds. But the football coach there for years was a guy named Terry Cullen. And he was a Marine officer, had served in Vietnam, badly wounded, Silver Star. And he really encouraged me to join the Marines. And I sort of didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I joined the Marine Corps, but my entire life, I've been a big fan of optionality. And I knew that if you go into the Marine Corps, unlike the other services, you sort of have to declare what you're going to do as you're going in. In the Marine Corps, as an officer, you get commissioned, you go to the basic school, And then based on your class ranking, you can pick whether you're going to flight school, infantry, logistics, drive a tank. We had tanks back then, artillery. So I knew that it would sort of give me some more optionality. And then speaking to Coach Cullen, I really sort of fell in love with this idea that the Marine Corps was really one of the top leadership laboratories in the world, and that it was a great place to leave school and learn a lot about leadership.
Yeah. And so you commissioned right out of Cornell?
Commissioned right out of Cornell. I was commissioned August 11th, 2001. A month later, 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
And I was in
BUD/S at the time.
Were you in? Wow.
So I was in BUD/S.
Where were you in BUD/S?
In Coronado. I was in first phase of BUD/S. So
Okay.
essentially, like, that's why I think in our lives, part of our friendship is based on the fact that our trajectories have been so parallel. So we were literally starting our military officer careers when 9/11 hit.
Right. When the crazy thing about that is when you think about when we were joining, the guys that were our age were sort of at the tail end of Vietnam.
Yeah.
Now we're those old
and
guys.
our tactics reflected it.
And our tactics reflected it. Yeah, no, 100%. That was what we were learning, right?
But it's also important, like we entered when it was a peacetime military.
Yeah.
And the sort of conception was peacetime military. In some ways the SEAL teams were a shoot, dive, jump club prior to 9/11, right? Pejoratively.
Oh yeah, I thought the biggest thing I was going to do was a MU deployment where maybe you evacuate an embassy and that you punch your card and you go home, right? And then as you know, the world totally changed on September 11th.
And so fast forward, ultimately you find yourself as a platoon commander in Iraq?
Yeah, so I went in with a flight contract. I was supposed to go to flight school, and when 9/11 happened, I was worried that if I spent 3 years in flight school, I'd miss the war. So I dropped my flight contract, went infantry, and served one sort of deployment after the initial invasion where we went ashore in Iraq for a short period of time as a MU deployment, and then volunteered for the next deploying unit, which was 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, and that was when we went into Fallujah in 2004.
And ultimately, I know this shit doesn't matter, but you earned a Bronze Star for that, obviously. But that was like a serious combat deployment, right?
That was a very serious combat deployment, and I'm incredibly proud to have been in 3-1 during that time, to have been a part of that, and in that unit we are still very close today. In fact, when I was Commissioner of Emergency Management, one of the guys in my detail who I was in the truck with every single day, a guy named John Saul, was a retired Marine First Sergeant, now NYPD. He and I were in 3-1 together 20-something years ago, and it's like having a guy like that in the truck with you every day when you're dealing with the politics of City Hall or stuff around the city. You got somebody you can really trust, you can talk to about anything, and that you've really been there with.
Yeah. I was with some of the boys last night, and truer words never spoken. Like, it is hard to replicate that experience of serving with somebody overseas. Yeah. Okay, so you finish your time in Fallujah. How long did you stay post that second Iraq? So
I was supposed to get out after that, and I was going to go to grad school. And the regimental OPSO at the time he's now retired, I think 3-star, 2-star, named Sparky Renforth. He'd been the lightweight football coach at the Naval Academy. He called me into his office as I was leaving, as we were getting ready to leave Iraq, and he said, "I heard you're getting out. Really want you to stay in. I'll help you get any job you want in the Marine Corps if you stay in." And I'm Jewish, and there was a job to deploy to Israel as a UN observer for like 6 months. And I was like, if I can get that job and go to Israel and find my Jewish wife in Israel, I will sign the papers for 2 more years. So this is like classic.
I know, by the way, that like no battle plan survives the first shot.
No, 100%.
I know where you met your wife.
Yeah. No, and by the way, I married an Irish Catholic girl from Boston.
Right.
So like this. So I signed the papers for 2 more years. I leave Iraq. I go home on post-deployment leave. I come back. Regimental OPSO wants to see you. I go to his office. Colonel, he's Colonel Renforth at the time. Colonel Renforth, how are you? Great. I got good news and bad news. What's the good news? You can have any job you want in the Marine Corps. I'm going to Israel. That's the bad news. We can't support that job anymore. I was like, well, I already signed up for 2 more years, sir. So I ended up getting detailed to a unit at the time called the Foreign Military Training Unit that then became the precursor to MARSOC and helped. It was a great experience because I helped build MARSOC. I helped build the recruiting, screening, assessment, and selection pipeline. I was on one of the first teams to deploy, and it was an incredible experience of seeing and helping build, a military unit from the ground up.
Yeah, and I don't know that we've actually talked about this, but I was intimately familiar with the genesis of MARSOC because I was part of the SOCOM Det 1, or they call it Det 1 out of Pendleton.
Det 1.
With that, I can't remember his name.
Precursor to the precursor.
Right, the 06 Colonel, the bald guy.
What's his name? He's a legend.
Yeah,
I'm blanking on his name, but
didn't he like disappear in Africa for a little bit?
Might have.
Yeah.
He's probably running an African country right now.
Yeah, he's a wild guy. But anyway, so he deployed with us overseas at SEAL Team 1 and stuff. So yeah, that's extraordinary. And like for people who don't know, the inclusion of the Marine Corps into Special Operations Command is sort of tectonic shift in Marine Corps philosophy, and some like amazing American warriors from MARSOC now. Amazing. Okay, so then now you've signed up for 2 more years. You finally, the Marine Corps really kind of gave it to you. Yeah,
Marine Corps really gave it to me. It's the big green weenie as they call it. But it was I'm so glad I had that experience. It was incredible, and I got to do some really interesting work in Africa, parts of the Middle East. One of the best times I had it in the Marine Corps was my boss, Colonel Pete Petronzio, who was one of the first guys helping stand up MARSOC. He just sent me around CENTCOM to embed with special operations units. And so grew my hair out, bounced around a bunch of different countries, had a travel credit card, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic. And I came back and just had to give a report to everybody about what the Marine Corps should build. And it was another one of those classic moments where I said, what we really need, no offense to Navy SEALs, what we really need is guys that can go down range, eat the local food, speak the local language, do foreign internal defense, unconventional warfare, sort of those like more classic, unconventional Green Beret type missions. And the Marine Corps was literally like the Heisman. It was like, that's great, thanks. We're going to do more direct action and specialized reconnaissance. It was like, that's awesome, but like, we're going to be door kickers. And I was like,
Yeah, I get it. That's really interesting. It's good foreshadowing for the rest of our conversation because in essence, what you were doing was you were asked to do a startup within an existing organization. And one of our themes here is that you don't always have to just like be Steve Jobs building a computer in your garage and a product, right? It's also possible to be entrepreneurial within organizations. Yeah. And it sounds like you had a really good sort of beta experience in your last Marine Corps tour.
Even on my second deployment, before going into Fallujah, I was in charge of one of the first successful Iraqi military units. And so I was building an Iraqi military unit in Iraq. And that too was very entrepreneurial. And I think that there are some real lessons from both of those experiences. And I think to your point, I think you're right. A lot of times people think when they need to start a company, they need to go out and do it in their garage. And sometimes it makes a lot more sense to do it when you have some infrastructure and support around you, and it can take away some of the risk.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing is like, especially like coming from the military, we often have this like, I'm going to push all my chips in and go, right? But the truth is many startups are built like people have their 9 to 5 and they build their startups in their 5 to 9. And that also is a de-risking mechanism, right? So there's no like single set solution or single pathway. So what did you do immediately when you transitioned out of the service?
So I did a bunch of stuff. I did some consulting work overseas. I made a documentary film about the war in Iraq and about Al Anbar. And then, about 2 years after I'd been out, I started to see that we started losing more Marines to suicide than we had in common. And I was in one of the hardest hit battalions of the Iraq War. We lost 33 Marines in Fallujah. I think about 576 of our Marines and sailors were wounded in Fallujah. So, one of the hardest hit battalions. And we started seeing that, losing some of our guys to suicide. And this is like in 2009, 2010, 2011. Nobody wanted to talk about mental health, especially in the military. Nobody wanted to take this stuff seriously. There was huge lines at the VA, and it was impossible to access care. And I sort of realized that the big problem was sort of, and so I was talking about this with 2 very successful finance guys, a guy named Al Rabel and a guy named Dave Petrucco. And Al Rabel had been in therapy most of his life. And when I say successful, he's insanely successful. And he said, I don't understand why veterans can't get the type of care I get. If I need to see the top psychiatrist in New York City tomorrow morning, I can do it regardless of whether they accept insurance or how busy they are, they'll fit me in. And that sort of became the foundation for answering the question, how do we build a program that can provide veterans with world-class care that's easily accessible, no paperwork, no bureaucracy, and it's free? And I fortunately had some relationships at Cornell Medical Center here in New York City with some amazing psychiatrists and therapists, a woman named Dr. Ann Beater, a clinician named Gerard Ilaria. And so we started building this program here in New York City. And, our first year, we maybe treated like 6 people. And we just saw that there was magic there. People were getting better, and that PTSD was something that people could recover from, and especially if they get the right care. And so we started really growing that program, and now it's one of the largest mental health care providers in the US. We're treating thousands of veterans a month. Really, really proud of that team. But that was not something I ever sort of thought, even imagined going into, right? When we were in the service, it was like, you go see the wizard, if you got a mental health program, but it wasn't something that was taken seriously.
Or the bartender.
Or the bartender, yeah, exactly. And I think our generation of vets, and I think the country has benefited from this, because I think we have sort of normalized mental health care and been at the vanguard of that people are now willing to get help, veterans are willing to get help. But
Zach, I was that guy. Right? Like, knuckle dragging, frogman, and I actually thought I had spoken for a long time about how, I actually believe that I had post-traumatic growth from my military experiences, which is possible, right?
Yeah.
Like stress produces adaptation and we grow from this, right? Even when we're working out. And so for a long time, and I built organizations devoted, like I knew PTSD was a problem, but my focus, the focus of my work had been on veterans' potential. Right? Team Rubicon, mission continues, right? Thinking of veterans as assets, not liabilities. And I honestly thought I was kind of immune to it, right? I thought that I saw our friends suffering around us, but I was like, I got this, I'm good. And then I went to Ukraine and it all came flooding back to me. Like the war in Ukraine, somehow all like our dead friends over the years, all the guys we had lost, it all came back. And I didn't know what to do. And I was still, I've been in and out of the reserves many times. And so like, what did I do? Like I called Headstrong because
I'd love to hear that.
And it was crazy, right? Now, like, let's be clear, the VA has gone tremendously better, right? But like, there's still a stigma, especially in the special operations community. And for me to be able to anonymously call up a provider and not think about who's going to pay for it or anything like that, zero friction, as frictionless as possible. And it fucking worked, man. So I am personally grateful.
I love to hear that.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And look, I'm totally clear. I have like 1% of like what other people have, like a very small modicum.
But it's important, like you go to the gym, and that's the other thing. It's like, I think what a lot of folks don't understand about PTSD is it's a totally normal reaction to combat. I mean, even right now, I've been in this job managing emergencies for the city for 4 years. My phone has not stopped ringing for 4 years, right? And I was going to start my new job on Monday, and I just left my old job on Wednesday. And I realized like, I need some time to self-regulate. I need to just take some time to breathe, because like when you're constantly in fight or flight, right? That is.
And these words weren't even in our vocabulary.
They weren't even in our vocabulary.
When you and I were serving.
Right. Yeah. But it's like, that is, being in fight or flight is fantastic when you're in combat. It's fantastic when you're operational and you need to fix problems and operate at that level. But I've also got 4 kids. I've got a wife. I want to be present, and you need to learn how to turn that off. And that sometimes takes help, and that's totally fine.
What I love about the Headstrong story is not just because I personally benefited from it, but also it's an amazing roadmap blueprint for veteran entrepreneurship, right? Because you saw this problem. You identified a problem, which is the beginning of building any business or philanthropic organization. You find a problem, right? And then you foraged around for a hypothesis like, hey, I think I can fix this, how? But here's the crazy part. Then you beta tested it, right? 6 people in the first year. This is not a wildfire success. Like, you are not curing mental health in America with your 6 patients in the beginning. But what you started to find was what we would call, like in the biz, product market fit, right? And then people started coming to it. And then you scaled and grew the organization. Like, this is Startup 101.
And I think where a lot of veterans get it wrong is they might do these steps, but I think we come from a culture where people don't want to fail. And I think you also have to recognize that there's going to be times when you fail, and that's totally fine. And sometimes an early failure that redirects you is totally fine. Yeah. Right. And I do see there are a lot of veterans who get caught up in a non-startup. I was one of these folks, or a company that is just never going to scale, never going to grow, but you are so freaking committed.
I'll find a way or make
find a way, and you're just jamming that square peg into a round hole, and it's like,
yeah. And I think the antidote to that, right? Because like one of the things we like to do here is like, give people tools and techniques and tactics for avoiding those kind of common startup mistakes, right? The antidote for that is data, right? You have to listen to the data, and you have to listen to your customers, right? And you have to take feedback. And I like to say, when I like mentor, counsel startup folks, like strong convictions loosely held, right? I got this like strong idea, but then I'm like listening to the universe, and it's telling me like, oh, this shit isn't working, or we want something else. And so then you can pivot, right? And those early fast pivots are so much easier than like transforming an organization later and course correct.
And you need to be able to build an organization where you have that level of trust and humility that you can hold those strong convictions, but people are still not afraid to challenge you, and you change your mind, or you realize you're wrong, right? Like that is really, there's a lot of magic.
We are wrong all the time, all the time. Good. And you also built some other organizations, right? You built Task and Purpose. And why did you do that? What was the
So I had started this job site called Higher Purpose at the time, and we had a blog that was affiliated with it. This was, I think, in like 2011, 2012, and I had two really amazing editors who were sort of running the blog, a guy named Brian Jones and a young woman named Lauren Katzenberg, who's now at the New York Times. And I don't know if you remember at the time, but there was all these awful sort of websites out there, like Just the Tip of the Spear, Marines United.
No, I don't remember this at all.
I mean, but so they were targeting women in service members, asking for like photos of women naked, and it was like really awful stuff, and harassment and bullying, and nobody was sort of calling them out. And Brian Jones, who is a former Marine officer from New York, former enlisted Marine, Afghanistan veteran, said to me, "We need to do something about this." And I was like, "Brian, this is a blog for a job site. What do you want to do about it?" And he's like, "Well, nobody's saying anything, and this is wrong. And there's all these women service members that are being targeted." And I, like, when somebody comes to you and they say something's wrong, we have to do something about it, like, you kind of have to. And I was like, this might be the end of the job site, but like, he's not wrong. Somebody needs to say something. And so we did a big expose on this site, Just the Tip of the Spear. JTOTS is what it was called.
So sort of just like an independent journalism foray
thing, but on the blog site for the job site, right? Yeah. And we realized that there was like a real gap in the marketplace for reporting that was really for the men and women who were actually enlisted and doing the work and giving them a voice. And that became Task and Purpose. And, I sold it in 2020, I think, maybe 2021. But I'm very proud of the team that we built there, the work that they've done. I mean, like, media is, especially like such a niche media, is never going to be a groundbreaking business. But I think we did some really impactful work and told some really, really critically important stories. And that was sort of the first one. And so that sort of came around out of it.
Amazing. I didn't know the origin story. That's really fascinating. Amazing. And then ultimately you just finished this like giant job, which is, it's a political appointee job, or you had to run?
It is. It's a political appointed job. All commissioners in the city are appointed by the mayor.
That's right, Eric Adams.
Yeah, and I had been, during all this time, I'd been involved in a lot of emergencies. I was in Haiti after the earthquake. I did Hurricane Sandy. During COVID, I built one of the only successful COVID field hospitals in the country. And I ran unsuccessfully for comptroller here in the city in 2021. Got to meet Eric Adams during that campaign a bit. And then when he was building his team, he asked if I'd serve as the emergency management commissioner. And so I've been in the role for 4 years, have dealt with all sorts of emergencies. I mean, everything from cyber incidents, shootings, all types of extreme weather, heat, cold, extreme rainfall, an earthquake, wildfire smoke from Canada.
You guys have earthquakes in New
we
York?
had a little earthquake here in New York City. We have space weather. We had a meteor over, I think it was like a 4.0.
Californian here,
shook us to the core here in New York City.
Whatever.
We had a meteor, space weather, cyber incidents. We had the migrant crisis, which was massive here in the city. I mean, that was probably the biggest thing we had to deal with. And then, told Mayor Mamdani that I would stick around to help with the transition. And then my last day was Wednesday with the team, and it was an incredible experience, and really love working for the city.
And so now on to bigger and better things. Awesome, congrats! We can't wait to see what you do next. What I'm curious about, what I really want to double click on, are some of the things from your early military experiences that you think helped you in these major ventures that you did, whether it was starting a nonprofit, starting a for-profit business, even though it was mission oriented, or serving in this really, really big role as emergency manager. What are the lessons that you drew from Iraq and the Marines that really helped you?
So I think I was very, very lucky. I had a lot of great influences in the Marine Corps. I had an amazing platoon sergeant where we had probably one of the most ideal platoon commander, platoon sergeant relationships, a guy named Nick Fox, who is still a very close friend to this day. I had some amazing battalion commanders, and my MARSOC commander, Colonel Petranzio, Colonel Buell at 3-1 were just incredible influences. And I think, the common thread throughout my life is I've almost always been in 25 years in some sort of leadership or management job. And I think one thing I would encourage veterans to really think about is we don't do such a good job in this country of building leaders and managers. And generally what I've seen in different industries is folks often, when they get promoted once, they can do the job really well as a manager because they're managing people who did what they just did. But when they get promoted the next time, now they're managing people who they've never done those jobs.
Yeah, it's like too derivative or something.
Yeah, and and that's when you really have to learn lean on real leadership and management abilities. And so, it's like the basic blockings and tackling, be inquisitive, be humble, make sure you're taking care of your people and that you care about them and that you're making sure they're working on problems that are really important, not wasting their time, that they're resourced appropriately and you're setting them up for success. That, I'd say half my job as the emergency management commissioner was dealing with emergencies. The other half was dealing with City Hall and sort of fending off City Hall and protecting our agency from City Hall and making sure that your people know that they have a strong advocate. And I think that is sort of, whatever you're doing, it's whether it was building Headstrong, it's sort of, I have no background in healthcare, but I knew how to find somebody like Dr. Beater and Gerard Ilaria who did, and make sure they had what they needed to be successful and to really listen to them. But then also to ask questions to maybe challenge them a little bit and get them to think differently about what they're doing. So that, because sometimes what the experts have always been doing is not necessarily going to solve the problem, right? But learning how to sort of have that tension. And I think when you're a young platoon commander in the Marine Corps and you have zero experience, all you have is 6 months at the basic school, 10, 12 weeks at infantry officer course, and a college education. And now you're deploying with a unit and you've got the old man of the platoon is Staff Sergeant Fox, who's 28 or 30 years old, and he's got 4 deployments in his belt. You've got to learn how to really listen to that platoon sergeant, but also how to ask the questions and lead and make sure that you're not just sort of leaning on experience, but bringing in innovation and pushing things forward. And I think like learning how to operate in that space is critical success in any endeavor as a leader.
Agreed. How about dealing with setback and loss? I mean, look, in the civilian world, we don't have, thank God, most of the time the equivalent of having your people in your unit killed, right? But we do have extraordinary setback and challenges and stuff. How do you deal with setback and loss?
It can be really hard. And I think you have to remember and be gentle with yourself that it's all part of the process. And I think also look, I've now been in a job in the most intense media environment and one of the only local press that sort of still pay attention. right? And everything that we do is under incredible scrutiny. And I remember when I ran for office, and I don't want to give any benefit to this internet troll, but like I said something about, I think it was about, I know exactly what it was. It was about Rikers Island, and that we still needed to have solitary confinement to protect prisoners, protect guards. And there's this kid who just blasted me online, this DSA, far left wing.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sleep all night about this. And I'm now like thinking about it, I'm like it didn't matter, right? Like, and what I've learned over the last 4 years is like, you just got to show up, do the work. The scrutiny doesn't matter. Setbacks, failure, it's all part of learning and developing, and you just got to grow from it. And I think if you're not willing to do that, you know, I mean, that's just part of it. I mean, think about like when you're going through infantry training and you twist your ankle, or, you know, I had friends that broke a leg during a mortar hike and had to recycle through infantry officer course, or, you know, you know, whatever it is, it's all part of your growth and development. And I think just building that resilience, and it's like, and learning to laugh about it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's like learning to, and my mom used to say, and my mom was one of the most amazing women ever. I lost her a couple of years ago, and she's still with me every day. And one of the things she'd always say to me is just don't lose your sense of humor. And I think if you can learn to laugh through the setbacks and the loss and the difficulties, I mean, think about it. You go to a funeral and you tell stories about one of the guys you lost, right? And like, you often find yourself laughing about these stories, right? It's like you're bringing joy to each other. And I think like that's part of it too, is like, is reminding yourself that these things are not as big of a deal as you might make them out to be.
Yeah, I also think when I think about the veteran entrepreneur landscape, I think that is one of our competitive advantages. There are lots of things that make it tough to be a veteran entrepreneur, like that sometimes never quit attitude when you should be finding, you know, a way around the obstacle instead of trying to run through the brick wall. But we have some competitive advantages. One is perspective, right? Because we've suffered real loss and real consequences, right? Oh, your company failed, like big deal. Zach lost 7 guys in Fallujah, right? Big fucking deal, your company folded, right? So one is perspective and the other is humor. Right? There is nobody funnier than like...
And we'll laugh about anything.
Well,
and it's terrible.
The darkest of dark humor.
The darkest of dark.
Yeah. When that angry bee is flying over your head, you know, and like your buddy is heckling you, right?
Yeah.
Like that. So I think those are actually competitive advantages for veteran entrepreneurs. Awesome. Zach, we like to finish with a section that we call rapid fire.
Uh-oh.
So it's like shooting steel, right?
Sure.
So just tell me what comes to mind. And
Clearly, I'll keep my head below gunfire and above water.
Exactly.
Let's shoot.
Here we go. Locked and loaded. Best investment you ever made?
So the best investment I ever made was in a friend's children's entertainment company that I 50x'd my return in like 2 years. But then the company eventually sort of went under afterwards, but I got out. But really the best investment I've ever made is just, and I think this is really, this sounds like such a cliche, but it's the hamburger I bought my wife on our first date. It's the relationship I have with her and the children that I have. And it's the people that I've surrounded myself with. Because when you put yourself in and surround yourself with the right people, that foundation is the key to everything.
Yeah. Shout out to Meredith. She's definitely way too cool for you.
She is way too pretty, way too cool, way too smart. I mean, even I'm a firstborn Jewish son, which means something like in the pantheon of families, like, you know, and my mom, who loved and adored me my entire life. But when I got together with Meredith, she was like, I don't know what she's doing with you.
Yeah.
I really don't know what she's doing with you. Yeah.
Well, your mom was a wise woman.
She was a wise woman, yeah.
All right. Worst financial mistake you ever made?
Oh, there's been a lot. I think probably one of the biggest ones is not signing up for the GI Bill initially when I was in the Marine Corps, right? I'd already been to college. I didn't think I was going to need it.
I actually did that too. It was the old Montgomery before Paul.
Yeah, it was the old Montgomery.
Before Paul came with the new GI
and
Bill.
thank God they did the new GI Bill, but it was just such a dumb mistake. And yeah, I mean, take advantage of those things.
Totally. Yeah. Well, we got that in common too. Military habit you'll never lose.
Oh, military habit I'll never lose. It's definitely not the haircut because
Hot kettle black.
I mean, I wake up insanely early. Yeah, I wake up insanely early. I like to get my workout done first thing in the morning.
I have that habit as well, and I don't know if I would call it a habit or a curse, but it's both.
I mean, even, when I left this job, emergency management, the next morning I thought I was going to sleep late. I was like, 4 a.m., eyes wide open. It's like, I guess I'm going to the gym.
There we go. Book that changed your mindset?
One of my favorite books is, you should have sent this to me earlier because there's a lot of great ones out there. Barbarian Days by William Finnegan, which is a great surfing book. And but it's about a guy who's a barbarian. He's traveling the world surfing. He lands in South Africa, gets involved in the anti-apartheid movement, and he becomes a citizen. And he sort of leaves his barbarian days behind. And I think that moment of finding real purpose is incredibly meaningful.
Zach, for people who want to follow along with what you're doing, what's the best way to connect or follow?
At Zach Iscol, ZACHISCOL, everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, all the things.
LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Yeah, all those good places.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you again, brother. An honor to have you.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
All right. Thanks for locking in with us today. Shout out to Siebert.Valor and Siebert Financial for supporting our journey. We'll be back next week with another powerhouse conversation. More founders, more builders, and leaders who are playing offense in life and in business. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel for exclusive content and extended cuts of your favorite episodes. Until next week, stay tactical, stay driven.